through your freedom.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Well, they can't, but I know you can, and I'm going to give it to you straight. It is Friday, and welcome back. I got to tell you, folks, it is now open to everyone. It's naked for everyone to see, and I'm not talking about something really hot, like, I don't know, Pam Anderson, or is she even considered hot anymore? Yeah, sometimes the old brain's still living back in the early 90s, you know what I'm saying to you? Anyways, no, that's not the open. That's not what's naked. What is naked, what is open, right in your face, and not in a good way, is the political warfare, folks. You need to understand that we are trying to keep that fight in Washington, D.C. It is critical to keep it there, because the moment it's not there, it's in your face, it's in your neighborhood, it's in your town. And I'm going to give you some examples. And you're aware of all this, but let's take the information and let's put it together so we can understand it. That's what being prepared is about. It's about food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. It's about that stuff, having a plan. But it's also understanding current events, trends, forecasting politically, militarily, economically, having to do with the infrastructure, food, everything. It's about keeping all of that in mind as we go deeper and deeper into Stupidville. But now, folks, it is naked. It is open warfare, and you are the enemy. What we need is frontline combatants in Washington, D.C. to keep them busy. You know, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to start with this, right? The January 6th sham committee is actually a committee, folks, looking into what happened on January 6th. What happened? You think they're going to look at the fact that the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police opened fire on peaceful protesters with flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, and chemical compounds? You think they're going to make that finding and go, well, that aggravated everything and started the violence? And then you think they're going to cover the fact that the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police were beating Americans with batons? These weren't Antifa. These weren't young people out there causing trouble that we saw all of 2022. No, these are old people, folks, old people. Old people. You know, people above the age of 30, I'm going to call old for the purposes of this discussion. 4 protesters were killed in less than an hour. How many days, how many hours, how many hundreds of protests, mostly peaceful protests, you know, they had fire, burning, looting, murdering. How many of those protests resulted in the death of BLM and Antifa people at the hands of the police? 0. I think the only deaths that occurred during a protest were at the hands of Kyle Rittenhouse, and that was in the defense of his life, which was upheld by a jury verdict in Wisconsin. That's right, folks. Understand, it is now open warfare. The lies. Now, again, in an oral or a war of words and information and communication, if you don't have the truth on your side to use as a cannon, right, a loud, boisterous cannon boom of truth, if you don't have that, all you have are lies. Think about it. If the truth is not on your side, what is left in a war of words? Lies and insults. That's all they have. Now, as all of you know, I'm not averse to using a good insult, a nice ad hominem attack on top of truth, because I like to use truth and fact to take that personal attack and drive it home on these people. That's one of my favorite things. It's like, well, you know, how are you going to argue with that? Guy's an asshole. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. January 6th committee. These are federal Congress people, House of Representatives from around the country, and 2 steaming piles of crap Republicans. Right, you got Kitzinger, Super Rhino, and of course, Dick Cheney's daughter, Les Cheney, whatever her name is, I can't remember anymore. Also Super Rhino. They have this committee. And instead of going, January 6th, right, we had what? The police open fire. We had the police beating people. We had the police killing protesters. And we had agents provocateur who the FBI, the Department of Justice, will not admit were in there mixing it up, aggravating things. They are the ones who forced the break-in. The peaceful protesters entered through the doors, folks. But what the mainstream media will show you is people breaking windows and then showing you the protesters walking peacefully, down the guided rope walkways as if they came in through the window, then decided to be civil. Unbelievable. So now the January 6th committee, in order to get to their truth, folks, and their truth isn't a truth, it's a lie, but they need to justify it. They need to make that lie look like the truth. Once again, it is open and naked warfare, political warfare. And the tools in this kind of warfare, folks, are words. And what they want to do is say that you are the cause of this. Oh, they're going after Trump also. They're going after Trump also. You know that, I know that, we all know that, but you are the ultimate target. Subduing the American people, taking their rights and making them subjects to Democrat power. So the January 6th committee wants to blame you. Now, they've gone after Trump and tried saying he instigated, fomented an insurrection. Well, the FBI said, not so fast, not really. Because they actually don't have any evidence to support that lie. So instead, they're going after now social media. They've subpoenaed Twitter, Google, Facebook, Reddit, who knows who else, because they want to see, quote, how the spread of misinformation contributed to the Capitol attack, end quote. How the spread of misinformation contributed to the Capitol attack. Who is calling the information misinformation? Mainstream media, big tech, and Democrats. Who was calling the information genuine, valid, supported with evidence? That would be you and me, the alternative media, you and me, and Republicans in Washington, D.C., the good ones. That who was using this information, trying to get to the facts. They were calling for investigations, right? Since when is calling for an investigation misinformation? Well, it is in a political war. Understand, though, folks, that political wars have real world physical consequences. And I'm going to give you an example. And it is nasty. And speaking of nasty, it involves Nancy. That's right, 90 proof Nancy. Nancy Pelosi. Good golly, right? What are they doing? They want to label patriots as bad. Now, they arrested Stuart Sverdlow, the founder, leader of the Oath Keepers. A lot of people believe he is a federal stooge, an FBI stooge, etc. Whatever. They've arrested him now to make an example of the right. Now, I'm thinking that if he was a stooge, a stool pigeon, agent provocateur for the feds, that they would have had him call for a real insurrection, lots of acts of violence. So that's why I'm like, if he was a plant, then he did a piss poor job. But, be that as it may. Oath Keepers bad, Proud Boys bad, right? And they've got the same problem with the Proud Boys. They're like, their leader is a stooge, stool pigeon for the feds. And what? They didn't really do a whole lot either, did they? Unlike the NFAC, Antifa, BLM, Black Bloc, that actually burned cities, courthouses, businesses, looted, assaulted police, killed, murdered police, killed, murdered citizens. But that's not who they want. They're not the targets. You, we are. This is open warfare. It is political warfare, folks. They want you to be labeled. So, yeah, Oath Keepers, yeah, Proud Boys. That's not good enough. So they created the Patriot Front, who I've been talking about lately. Get ready for their black swan, because it's going to fly down. It's going to crap all over everybody. And what? Who else is the enemy? Well, Tea Party members. Oh, you bet. Veterans, patriots, mainstream Republicans, and of course, the biggest group of them all, the most dangerous group of them all, parents. As soon as they labeled parents as domestic terrorists, I knew that all masks were removed, that the last bit of that velvet glove came off the iron fist, and they're going to start pounding us with it. The other day, that ancient farting fossil of an idiot, right, labeled us as domestic enemies. Americans. Biden called Americans the domestic enemies. Half the country he labeled, folks. That's how wars begin. That's how wars begin, folks. It starts with words and it's followed up with actions. They're arresting Americans and holding them in the DC Gitmo, the DC Gulag, the DC Bastille, right? They're holding them there. They're going out and they're reaching out and arresting other Americans. Right now they've got Stuart Sverdlow. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? Who's next? You? Now, we've been labeled domestic enemies. And I'm telling you, I want that battle to stay in Washington, D.C. I don't want them coming out here in America and messing with us. That's why we need to send, in November of 2022, we need to send as many good, real Republicans to D.C. to take up this fight. Because Nancy Pelosi, when speaking of the Biden called us domestic enemies. She says, I thought it was fabulous. Fabulous? You thought it was fabulous that the president called half of the nation's people domestic enemies? Folks, it's open. It's out in the open now. It is not even being hidden. It is naked. It is shaking in your face, and it's about to sit on you and squash you. Right? And this is just political warfare. This is just talking. I'm not even talking and discussing the medical crap. I'm not talking about any of the other SHTF things that are happening in this country, from food supply to other supply issues, fuel concerns, fuel prices, the value of your money tanking as inflation skyrockets, the destruction of our military. I'm not talking about anything. I'm just talking about the words coming out of their mouths. Now, before I conclude, I want to thank you for spreading these videos all over the place. You have to. This is how you contribute on your side. You don't have to declare war or say anything radical or stupid. You just have to recognize what's going on and pass information along. Of course, Joe Biden says the disinformation and misinformation has to stop. And then he labels us domestic enemies. And then Nancy Pelosi says, I thought that was fabulous. Nah, give me a bottle of wine to suck on. Right. That's what they think and they're doing. We need to keep the fight in DC. So call your congressman. Text them, message them, however the hell it works. Get on the internet, find them, your senators, same, and share these videos with others and let them know, hey, this is no longer just words. And I'm going to tell you why it's no longer just words. In Nazi Germany, folks, after Hitler became Führer, after the Reichstag burned, their Congress burned, literally the building burned. And they said, nah, we don't need a Congress anymore. We'll just take a dictator, someone who mandates all the rules. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? And what did Hitler do? He started naming the enemies of the government. Now, when Nixon had his enemies list, the political left went ape shit. When Nixon's enemies list was made public, the mainstream media, politicians went bonkers. This is what Hitler did. Hitler had an enemies list. Well, maybe I ought to remind everyone again. Yeah, Hitler did have an enemies list. Who were on it? Most notably, the Jews. Everyone knows it was the Jews, and the Holocaust. Well, I hate to say this, but his political enemies, folks, his political enemies were known. They had lists of people who opposed his policies. Guess who else was rounded up along with the Jews? Guess who lost their jobs? Guess who had their businesses closed? Guess who had their businesses smashed and burned by youthful, ideologically opposed idiots who were told, go smash this business by the government. Their agents provocateurs were in the Hitler Youth, the brown shirts. The Gestapo could have stopped it, they didn't. The SS could have stopped it, they didn't. Nope. Political warfare is words that leads to action. Words that lead to action. That action will be opposed to your beliefs of freedom, liberty, the Constitution, law and order, justice, etc. What are you going to do, folks? You're going to sit back and go, yeah, well, I'm going to wait till it's on my town before I do anything about it. Let those other guys deal with it. Folks, it ain't that kind of world anymore. It's not the kind of world where you can sit back and wait until it's on your doorstep, knocking on your door, saying, hey, Joe America, I need you to come out. We got some problems with you. Folks, they've got the information superhighway to spread lies about you. You are already hated. That's right. Right now, you are hated. Even if you're in a Republican town, even if you're in a conservative state, you're hated, whether you know it or not. The people around you, they think you should die. Remember, you're a deplorable. Remember, little cute Katie Couric said you should go to a re-education camp, a reprogramming camp. Just on the street, normal human beings who have a Democrat in their voting bloc hate your guts in most of the country because of this crap, because of what is being said. I mean, and to give you the final example, there's a man who has vowed to go to war with state legislatures after Senators Manchin and Sinema ruined his kill the filibuster. There's a filibuster rule in place as a political tool to keep the balance of power. Joe Gigi dumbass Biden used to be all for that. He said that's necessary, right? Now he's saying, no, it's bad. So Joe, the uniter. Remember that? He's the great uniter. He's going to unite America. Are you fucking kidding me? What uniting has he done when he calls half the country, right, domestic enemies, when they label parents as domestic terrorists? That's uniting the country? Are you out of your minds, right? Joe the Uniter Biden has vowed to go to war with state legislatures because these senators failed in destroying the filibuster, because they want to ram through legislation. They want to ram through the Voter Rights Act, the HR 1 that's out there, that would allow everyone to vote, vote often, vote everywhere. The dead get to vote. You can mail in votes. You can go in and vote. That's what they want to do. They want to open all that up. They want to redistrict the lines so they hold control. 2022 is going to be pivotal, folks, when they're trying to preempt what's happening with this HR 1. I don't have to lie, folks. I don't have to bullshit. I don't have to try and scare you. This is all real. Joe Biden says this thing. Nancy Pelosi says, oh, yeah, I thought it was fabulous. Fabulous, right? You bet. That was fabulous. Way to go. Way to label half the country an enemy. And you're dyed in the wool. Idiot street people are looking around going, oh my God. The president just said that these Republicans are the enemy of the country. Folks, that's not just irresponsible. I think that in and of itself is treasonous. I think that in and of itself is impeachable because it is encouraging violence. Now, the enemy of freedom is communism. The enemy of freedom and liberty is socialism. So to claim that something that wants to destroy liberty is the enemy of the country, that is not treasonous. It's in support of the country. To claim that you who love freedom are an enemy shows you that socialism and communism are in DC, and the people swimming in that are neck deep in it. And they're more than willing to start a war of words. And ultimately, folks, these little words, these little acts, these little proclamations end up leading to physical acts of violence. And I will once again, and I know I'm running long because that's how I roll. The political left that is acting violent on the streets, BLM, Black Bloc, Antifa, they are more than willing and have already shown us they're going to act in violent manner with regard to their belief system, their political belief system. They already, folks, they already had their words, their beliefs, their indoctrination, and they're ready for violence. In Washington, D.C., they're preparing the American people, their supporters, their allies, their party with words of war so that they too can join in the action. It is coming. I don't want it. I don't like it. I can't stop it, but I can tell you to get prepared for it and then send good people to DC. Send them up to DC because I would rather have the fight going on there on that little patch of tarnished and soiled dirt than have it in your hometown, in your face. So Godspeed to all. Semper Fi, and chance favors the prepared mind. Aren't you glad you're a prepper? Oh, and tune in next. It's going to be Free for All Friday, and then, of course, Sunday Night Live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and we're going to line up, folks, as we end this week. I can already see next week developing.